Joining us now, man of the hour, Tom Garrett, Congressman, Republican, 5th District, Virginia, Republican. Tom, Happy New Year. Merry Christmas. My best to you and your lovely family. Good to have you back.
John, I'm curious if you just said that had the convention been done differently in the 5th District, romance novel, cover heartthrob Fabio would be the congressman.
What was that guy's name?
Fabio. He had great hair.
I forget the guy that ran against you. Delgado, that's it, right? Delgado? Is that it? Help me out.
How are you doing? What have you
You're not going to even give me his name.
John Fredericks.
I think it's Delgado or I don't know, whatever the guy was. But let's just get to that, and then we'll get on to the big stuff. Okay, so 6th District, right? So the Republicans have this meeting. They want to do a convention. Okay, I get that. But then they want to depart from precedent and make it a first ballot victory, so you have no consensus, which is not traditionally how it's been done. Normally you go to get somebody at 50%. So you went in the convention. You did not come in first on the first ballot. You won on what? The second ballot, right?
Third.
You won in the third, but you were the consensus candidate. You go to your colleague, Rob
we
Whitman.
Went on the third, we ended up at about almost 60%. And so I think that the problem with what's proposed in the 6th District. Now, let me preface it by saying this. None of my business. However, I am entitled to an opinion. So they'll do what they think is best. I have the right to disagree. But I think the problem is if you want to tear a rift in the party that doesn't heal well, then do it with a plurality. What plays out on a multiple ballot where you go from a plurality to a majority is the opportunity for people to move of their own accord. So you might be presented, in our case, with 4 choices, and then it went to 3 choices, and then it went to 2 choices. And that allows people to affirmatively say, yes, this is my candidate, which I think minimizes the intra-party feuding, and I think it's a good thing. But, again, none of my business. I don't tell the people in the 5th District Committee what I want, what they should do. I tell them what I think is right, and then they make those decisions for themselves, and that's the way it's supposed to work. But I think the multi-ballot process allows for some reconciliation, and it allows for people to not have to take it whether they like it or not, but come to a candidate. So that's, I think, the benefit of that multi-party or that multi-ballot process.
I think the plurality thing with 6 candidates in the race where you just have one ballot, you go home, I really think that is a prescription for division, divisiveness, and disaster. And I hope the delegates that get there change the rules on the floor to make it consensus. Because, again, and I'm just going to be blunt here, Tom Garrett, you're one of my favorite congressmen in the world. You would not be there if it was a plurality. You came in second on the first ballot. Rob Whitman, one of my best friends in the world, who I think does a fabulous job, wouldn't be a congressman today if there was a single ballot plurality. I think he won on ballot number 5 back in the day.
Right.
I mean, he came in just almost at the bottom, worked his way up. And so you have to get a consensus. And so I really don't like that rule that they've put in place.
I think it's. I don't like it either. Again, though, I'm not throwing stones at individuals. I get it. I mean, when you start using rules to curry favor for a particular candidate, or when you start using laws, now we can sort of move to the next topic. When you start using laws enforced non-uniformly to place advantage or detriment to one party or another, then you really sort of undermine what the process is supposed to be.
I agree with you. I think it's troubling to me. Look, I don't like conventions anyway, and I think when you do this kind of thing, it just makes it worse, and you never come out of there. It's hand-to-hand combat. But at least when you get a consensus, at least when you get over 50%, there's some semblance of coming together. What I told Cynthia Dunbar on the phone yesterday is I said, Cynthia, mathematically, you could be the nominee with 18% on the first ballot. Mathematically, that is possible. You get 18, everybody else gets 15, you're the nominee. So,
we won
12.
the nomination for the state Senate with, I think, 26%. But there was also a primary. But
right.
I mean, yeah, that means 70% of people who cared enough to get out of their beds on an obscure Tuesday and go vote did not get their first choice, and that creates problems.
Well, the best system that I've ever seen was in Georgia, where if the top 2 candidates in a primary are under 50%, you have a runoff. I lived there a long time, and at the end of the day, you brought the party together because somebody got 50%, and that seemed to work. Let's get to the president's meeting yesterday. Tom Garrett, Republican, 5th District, Virginia. The president bringing everybody in, turning the cameras on, and saying, hey, give me something. I'm going to sign it. Is this negotiation, or is the president selling out his base?
Wow. I don't think the president's selling out his base. I also don't think it's negotiation. I don't think it's leadership. I think leadership is what you do when you know that 51% of more people disagree with you, and you also know what's right. And so you do what's right in the face of bad polling data and hope that the people come to you based on your communication, right? And you know, there are issues that we've taken stands on where we knew that if you polled people who might vote for me, we wouldn't break 50, but we were convinced it was the right thing to do. And, you know, when it works well, then you fast forward 6 months and you break 50 easily because people have come to your way of thinking. But, you know, I've spoken with innumerable DACA recipients because they've sort of descended on Capitol Hill and said, hey, look, I'm a real live, living, breathing person. And I got here when I was, 7 or 3 or 12 or what have you, and what are you going to do? And what I've said, and they tend to film every conversation, which means a lot of members don't talk to them, but I'm happy to talk to them. What I've said is we'll address the reality that is people who arrived here when they were children, if and when we address the reality, which is a porous, sieve-like southern border, right? You secure the border, and then you address the reality on the ground, because there's historical precedent for doing it in the other order, most pertinently the Reagan amnesty in the 80s. And here we are again, right? And candidly, the young people with whom I've spoken, none of them have objected to that. None. The only people who object to that are the leadership of the Democrat Party. If you're familiar with the memorandum that was recently leaked, it said, getting citizenship for illegal immigrants is an essential part of the Democrat Party strategy to win in the future. That's paraphrased, not quoted, but I mean, just wrap your brain around that. In other words, abrogating the established laws of the nation is in our best interest so that we can win elections. That's at least there's some honesty out there. But,
well, it's honesty is the best policy, but it's
a Clinton
sick.
confidant and former Obama employee.
It's sick. But look, it's what we've been saying the whole time, right? There's this unholy alliance between the Democrats that want open borders so they can get a flow of illegals in, turn them into voters, and they get cheap votes. And, of course, many of your friends on the mega donor Republican side that give money to all these Republican incumbents that want open borders because they want a continual source of cheap slave labor, driving down wages to help their companies.
Yeah,
so
right.
they
and
can.
If there's any source of cheap labor, guess what that does to everybody else's ability to earn? It pulls it downward, right?
It pulls it downward.
There is a vested interest on the left in ensuring that people are not able to fulfill their own dreams and highest desires, because people who are dependent upon the government tend to be more loyal to the party of big government. And people who buy the class warfare rhetoric tend to never rise to the level of those who they're pitted against. Right? Rule 11, Zelensky's rules for radicals. So, at least the Democrats are predictable. What we need is an informed electorate who goes, yeah, this is what you're doing. Like, for example, with President Trump right now, and I think I've already criticized him on this phone call. So
yes.
Make no mistake, I'm not a sycophant. But I mean, this he's crazy is the same daggone playbook that they used against Reagan. He's senile and he's not competent for office. They used against HW. He's bumbling, and W, he's dumb. They even did it against Gerald Ford.
Yeah, when they said he couldn't hit a golf ball.
Coordinated doofus because he tripped on a flight of stairs,
right?
And had the temerity to do that on film. President Trump, if we judge President Trump not by the rhetoric but by the results, the guy is doing really well. The economy is booming. This jobless recovery bullcrap that we got preached to about for 8 years, this new normal garbage, how our GDP couldn't expand at a +3 rate for whatever excuse reason, is all out the window, and this country's chugging along.
That is so succinct what you just said. If you judge the president by the results and not the rhetoric, all right, he's had a pretty good run. But what happens is everybody wants to judge him by the rhetoric. I can talk from the position, Tom Garrett, of a Trump supporter, chairman of Virginia, been there from the beginning, and a believer in the wall and comprehensive immigration reform that includes all the things you talked about yesterday, E-Verify, getting rid of the HB1 scam visas, getting rid of the lottery visa, getting rid of chain migration, making it merit-based, and simply closing the border so people can't come in illegally. I mean, it's kind of a simple plan. But the bottom line is he didn't cave on anything.
Ever suggesting that we should curtail immigration. There's a magical word that's present or absent, and that is legal, right?
Yeah.
And I have no desire to curtail immigration. We should take the best and the brightest from amongst those clamoring to become Americans so that we can enrich this greatest nation on earth by virtue of the ideas and energy that they bring to the table. But when you start foisting intergenerational poverty on the United States as if there's a responsibility of this country somehow that supersedes its responsibility to its own citizens, things will go poorly.
Well, and that's what's happening now. I mean, look, I agree with you. Nobody's in favor, certainly I'm not, of closing the borders and having no immigration whatsoever, but I am in favor of changing the legal immigration rules so that we're not in the situation we are now with chain migration and lotteries and scam visas. You know, has
there ever been a news story on the death toll of diversity visas?
No.
Because I think there have been at least, and this is off the top of my head, 5 or 6 different diversity visa recipients who've killed Americans.
Yes. No.
Now, why would they? That's 5 or 6 out of thousands, but come on, man.
Well,
I mean, you know, shouldn't some level of scrutiny be imposed on people like the Tsarnaevs?
I would think so. 6 million immigrants came into the country. 6 million come in annually, both illegal and legal. Now, you think about that number. You got 6 million a year. That is a huge amount of people that you have to absorb in.
That sounds higher than the numbers I've seen. Regardless, the responsibility of the national government should be first to the citizens of the nation.
Right. All right, so the bottom line is, it sounds like what you said, you didn't like the way the president handled this meeting yesterday. I get that.
It's not that I don't like the way he handled it. It's just that I would do it differently.
Okay,
I mean,
I get it.
He has the amazing luxury of being the president of the United States with a bully pulpit that accompanies it. If he believes there's a right way to do this, he should walk to a microphone and say, this is what I believe is the right way to do this.
The way he did,
even if it's not politically expedient at the time. And I think I got enough record to back up that I'll put my money where my mouth is, because that's what leadership is.
The way he did with taxes, right? I mean, that was a long process. They started by saying, here's the principles that we want. They started by handing it out at the White House press briefing one day. Gary Cohn and Stephen Mnuchin came. That was the first thing. These are the 5 things we want. I don't remember what they were, but they got them all in the bill, and they set the stage. I think if you look at the meeting yesterday, it's all talk. Talk is cheap, but I think what the president tried to do was lay out the 5 things he wanted. It got a little bit garbled, and nobody came out with the principles. They all came out with, the president's going to cave on the wall and cut a deal with Dianne Feinstein, which is completely false. So we'll see. Right?
Yeah, I mean, you know, look, this poor guy has the great luxury, and I say that tongue-in-cheek, of being sharp shot from all directions on everything he does. All I'm saying is I would have done it differently. I don't think it's a different person as it relates to securing the border. You know, that would be the attack from the right, and I certainly don't think that he's some sort of bigot or anti-immigrant individual either. I think the truth lies in the fact that he wants to secure the border, but he recognizes that there's a process that's in place to get this done. He has to work through that process, unlike the previous administration that just abrogated the process. And so that's what he's trying to do.
Tom Garrett, we're out of time. Thanks for being with us. More information. Tom, what's your website?
So what I want people to do is if they'll go to YouTube and type in Congressman Tom Garrett, they'll find the YouTube channel. And what you'll get there is more or less every committee interview, every floor speech, every announcement that we make on video in our words. So YouTube, Congressman Tom Garrett, subscribe to the channel, and you're getting it firsthand.
Tom Garrett, Congressman, 5th District, only a congressman because, well, his team played by the rules. Tom, thanks for being with us. Thanks for being with us.
Godspeed, John Fredericks.